Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Comedian's Paradise. This is the podcast where we speak to many awesome comedians and clowns from across the comedy world. Now, today's guest is an absolute perfect example of a working clown. He's performed for Ringling Bros and he's performed for Cirque du Soleil. He's got many insights that could be of use to comedians and clowns from across the globe. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll see you there. Good. Howdy, Mark.
There.
How are we doing? You all good?
Doing great, man. How are you?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Happy to have you on the podcast. I enjoyed your chat with Barnaby.
Thanks. Thanks. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from London.
Okay. Great. Cool.
It's quite a way, isn't it?
Indeed. And what brings your fascination to clowning? Like I know you're a comedian or a comedian background or something. What is your background?
I'm mostly a stand-up, but one of the things that happened a few years ago and a while ago is that I go on stage. I hate telling jokes. I'm not necessarily a good joke writer, but I'll get laughs through randomness or silliness on stage or doing something stupid on stage. And people suggested that I go to Goliath and do the clowning. And so I did that and I got into it. And then, definitely I call myself more of a clown than a comedian. Like I'm a lot funnier being an idiot on stage than anything else. And what's brought me to you is I run a podcast as well. As I've asked you to come on, I interview a lot of different people, and I stumbled across Barnaby King's YouTube channel, and then I found out that I wanted to see that. I always had a feeling that most of the clown that I get introduced to as a comedian is Goliath stuff. I don't really get introduced to what's more than that. And when I found Barnaby King's podcast, it's like, oh, all these interesting people in clowning, and I always. I know there's a lot more than that way of teaching, especially when you said that there's difference between you said use both to form your own style, American style and European clowning. And I find it interesting. I feel also long term, stand up is a good art form, but I do feel that with clowning also being quite physical, I think in terms of that comedy, that's more universal and you can take that anywhere. That's why I'm interested in clowning.
Yeah. First, let me preface before I say another single word, because I feel like always when people, philosophize and talk about art form and art in general, there's a level of everything that you say, the opposite is immediately true as well, right? So like if I say something as a preface, it's likely, it makes sense and it works, but also immediately the opposite is true. And so with that, what I find really interesting in your connection to clowning and your kinship with it is, for me, and the way you described it, for me, the very thin difference between stand-up comedy and clowning is that stand-up comedy tends to be anecdotal. In other words, someone's coming up and they're telling stories or jokes or things that happen to them or could happen to them or something that makes them feel a certain way, rather than if you're doing something in the moment. Clowning is more they're laughing at you because of what you're doing in the moment rather than the anecdotal thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And that is a great bit of, that's something that I need to, I'm going to edit that, Mark. That is going on TikTok as a short clip. Is that all right?
Well, a whole bunch of bullshit. There you go. Enjoy it.
No. It's, I'll be honest, what you said there about you saying there's rules and it follows this way. You said that the opposite's true. I mean, I don't know I'm going to leave that. I'm not too sure if but I agree with one thing of what you said in that. I agree that to be good at any art form, you've got to you'll form your own understanding of it. And I feel with stand up and a lot of comedy, it's good to know the basics, and then once you know the basic, you can form your own way of doing it, and that's how.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I guess why I preface that is because I said absolute, an absolute idea where obviously you can poke holes in it and someone can counter that and say, yeah, but what about this person who does this thing? And you're like, oh, yeah, well, that's a good point. But, in terms of my observation, when I'm watching a comedian and when I'm watching a comedian who kind of steps his toe into the clown world, like like a Steve Martin or a Martin Short or Zach Galifianakis or these sort of comedians, they're like stepping into the clown world where you're not laughing at their anecdotal thing. You're laughing at them in the moment for their stupid thing that they're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what was the thing that I interviewed Jeff Rads a couple week no about a week ago. He said something that was really you've said something that's made me remember something he said. Um, but an anecdote, yeah. When we don't fully I was talking to him about the Cirque du Soleil, and a lot of business books point them as being pioneers in the circus industry. And he said that the circus thing was dying, but he said people need to do their more research on it, and it was lazy research, and it's people often assume opinions on things, and they want a shortcut without really developing their own thorough research on something. Like you see all
Yeah.
these YouTube videos on dating, life advice, and all of that. They don't want to. I mean, it may apply to one person, but it doesn't always apply to you, does it? Because you're different to that person.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Jeff's a smart guy for sure.
Oh, he's amazed. It was a pleasure to have him on. I don't know how he acted because I interviewed him at 1 a.m. in the UK, so I don't know how I
Ooh,
came across to him. But
there
yeah,
you go.
he's a sound guy. He was a good laugh to have on. And I have found
Yeah.
that the difference between clowns and stand-up comedians is that clowns seem to be easier going and easier to get a hold of to get on the
Oh,
podcast. I found that if I send 20 odd messages to stand-up comics, I get 3 or 4 responses. But if I send about 6 or 7, I'll get maybe to clowns, I'll get maybe 4
yeah.
responses.
Interesting. Interesting. I think maybe because there's less of us and we're like, oh, we get to tell our story. And there's so much taboo with the word clown, particularly here in the United States, that we're like, oh, what an opportunity to, tell my story and let people know that clowns are not just about scary movies or Halloween time or bar and bat mitzvahs for your for
It's
your
true.
cousin, you know.
This is interesting again. This is another interview where I've had with a clown where just the start's gone so well and so smoothly. Normally, I go in right and I'll have a little chat, warm up a bit, and then boom, we do the intro. But straight away, Mark, I think the conversation's sort of flown away. There's already some good nuggets. It's
Oh, good
just go
man.
ahead and go on with it.
Yeah, keep going, keep them rolling.
It's funny every now and then it's a sort of mix and match. Sometimes I do the intro, sometimes I don't. But yeah, is it's where it is. Did you listen to any of the pods beforehand where you're like, no, I'll
I
listen
haven't
to
gotten a
this?
chance. Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance. I'm here. I'm in the OC, they call it, in Orange County in California. We're just opening a show, Kuza, for Cirque du Soleil. So I've just jumped on with this show about a month and a half ago. And so it's been kind of just, a sprint to getting to this point. And so now I'm finally coming up for air. So forgive me, I haven't listened
No
to
worries.
any of your podcasts yet, but I will circle back for sure, especially mine.
Of course. We love, yes, us performers, we do love our own voices. No, I'm joking.
Wow, isn't he hilarious and insightful? Yeah.
Yeah. No, but do you sometimes get a thing as a performer where you watch back and you listen to it and you feel you get the imposter syndrome. You feel a bit who's yeah, you feel a bit uncomfortable sometimes listening to yourself. I mean, I feel it's necessary for me as a comedian. I sometimes get a bit deluded, and I think I do better in the gig than I did, or I think if I've done badly, I've done better than what I did. So
Yeah,
I find that the video always sort of tells the truth on how I've done.
100%. I do not enjoy the process of listening to my voice or watching my work later. However, I do understand the importance of it. That sometimes you're like, well, why isn't this little piece working? Let me watch it back so I can figure it out. I do a lot of videotaping of myself when I'm working on a bit for the first time in a new way. Um, because you need eyeballs. You can't watch yourself, and then as soon as it starts feeling good, you put it in front of the audience, and then the audience is the real judge, whether they're telling you it's working or not. I believe that strongly, that the only way that you know anything is funny is when the audience tells you. So yeah, it's the biggest meter for me.
And how important is it to have to? I've this sounds really stupid, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't really give a toss how daft I sound, but I found that with audiences and like working with other people is an absolute must as a performer. Like already,
Oh
like
yeah.
my weakness in sort of being a comedian, and the one thing I'm working this year, I'm working my weaknesses. So joke writing is something that I'm quite poor at, and I'm I've got like a professional comedian who's very good at that side of things, and getting him to work on different things for me helps me see so many things that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. Like he's put structure to it, different eyeballs, and like it just saves so much time. Like the podcast itself, I keep saying it, driving it down, but in the conversations that I have with some of the with all the great people on here, these things that I learn on it would probably take me years to learn. But in one conversation, I learn it. And by working with other people that you admire or that are great at what they do, you learn things so much quicker than if you're on your own on a laptop not doing anything.
Well, I strongly believe that, particularly in comedy, you can't do it by yourself. It's literally impossible because you are making jokes, you're writing bits for people to laugh at. And if you're doing that, to the mirror or to the wall or to a computer, you can type it away. They may look like they're interesting, but they're not. It's like a tree that falls in the forest. Someone has to hear the tree fall in the forest in order to know, oh, that's a funny bit. And so for me, I have probably like a short list of 5 people that along the process of making a new thing, I can call them up and be like, hey, I've got this stupid idea. What do you think? Is it something? Oh, great. No, I thought it was a stupid idea also. Let's, yeah, I'm not going to move forward. Or they're like, well, maybe there's a little something there. What if you thought about this way? And then along the process, I might videotape it, like I said before, and show it to them and be like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm not really feeling that. And if you're not doing that, you are definitely shooting yourself in the foot because it is a collaborative experience. We are, I believe, vessels of the people that have come before us. So, in other words, the great clowns and comics that have come before me, I've watched them, I've talked to them, I've interviewed them, or worked with them, and their information goes into my body, and I digest it in a certain way, and then I spit it out into the next generation, and then the next generation will do the same thing, and that's how this art form lives. And if you're not taking advantage of that community, you're not learning, you're not growing. If that's the way I feel about it.
Well, there's two things on that. Like, do how do you catch yourself when you feel that I don't know, you overestimating something that you think's better than what it is? And what's the flip side to it? In that occasionally get that in person or in other things where, in stand-up comedy, talk about joke thievery and stuff like that. But one thing that I do believe to be false, and this is a saying that a lot of people say it, they say that copying is the sincerest form of flattery. Yes, it's true to an extent, but what if it's done to an extent where you have people around you that they do that, but then they try and one up you and they bring nothing to the table? That's a, I don't know. I've had that a couple of times. It's a bit of
Yeah. So wait, there's a two-part question there, right? The first one was, which one was it again? Well, first, second part with thievery. The first part is,
Well, the
describe it.
first part was how do you catch yourself? And because
Ah,
I, as a stand-up, sometimes will think that I've done better than what I've done, or I
got
think
it.
this is working. And
Got
then
it.
the
Got it.
second part is what's the flip side of you say that we're vessels people we learn from, but what's the flip side of that? Because I've
Yeah.
witnessed it and been a part of it
Yeah.
where I've had people around me who are
Good.
who've copied, and then they not only do they copy, they one up you,
You're
and they
going in and out
try
a
and
little bit. I hope we're not losing.
hello, hello, hello. Think. Okay, we're there again. We're there again. No worries. But yes, so what I was getting at
Are you
was,
still there? Can you hear me
yeah,
okay? I
can you hear
did.
me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so what I was saying again
Yeah,
was,
you're freezing just a little bit. I think we have a bad connection here. You're back. You're back. We're good. We're good.
so
Yes. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you
I've got
perfectly.
it. So the first part, okay, so the first part for me is I'm the opposite. I edit myself too quickly sometimes, I feel like. In other words, sometimes I don't give a chance to my jokes or my bits. And I'm like, I need friends to be like, well, what happened? You give it a shot. I think that's really funny. I love editing. I love cutting out the fat of a joke and getting to the meat of it as quickly as possible. So sometimes I shoot myself in the foot by not really giving it a shot. And again, that's why the collaborative interaction with your peers and your friends to help encourage your growth is important. About the thievery thing, it's a slippery slope, especially with the clowning thing, because it's we're all derivatives of each other. With I'm going to say something that's completely, you know, controversial, of course, but I don't think there's anything new, right? If you thought you were going to go into a room and go, I'm going to do something completely unique that no one has ever done, I don't think that's possible because I think you could just by how we consume entertainment or information or the news or whatever, it's from somewhere and that inspires us to make a thing. So everything is a derivative of a thing. Now, here's the thing about clowning, and here's something that when I do some teaching, I try to encourage people to do. There are old classic routines that have been passed down from generation to generation, right? We're going all the way back to, you know, Shakespeare and even before Shakespeare and um, Commedia dell'arte and these sort of things. That these are gags and ideas that have just been passed down from generation to generation. I say to people, try doing these sort of routines like a warm sweater. Like try it on and be like, hey, does this feel good in my body? Is this something that is a way that my work can go in that direction? And if it is, you do it to the way that you've learned it, or maybe, lack of a better word, copy it, and then figure out what your angle is,
Ah,
right? Like, lots of clowns have done a conductor routine where they're conducting the audience, right? But there's Dinny LaComb's version of conducting the audience, where he's a very famous clown in the Ringling Brothers Circus, where he's on a trampoline and it looks like a platform, and he's kind of going on this trampoline and making it super dynamic. But I would say that was a derivative of Bugs Bunny. If you watch like the old Looney Tune, where Bugs Bunny is conducting an audience and his sleeves are falling off and the music is taking over his body. Dinny did a very similar thing, but did it in his way with this new trampoline idea and etc. So I think it's great to be inspired by things, try it on like a warm sweater, and then figure out if it's something that feels good and is right for you. If it's not, go find a different warm sweater to try on, and then that can
okay.
inspire you to make your own work. But you should not disguise it as this is my sweater, right? Then that's when copying becomes a problem, right? Um,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah,
Make it
that's my
your own, whatever it is. Don't, yeah.
Yeah, and if it doesn't work for you, don't do it because people could smell, oh, that's just a bit that that person did because it doesn't fit on you. It's like there's a little bit of an imposter thing going on. What is, it's not working for some reason, right? Like
Mm,
I can't be my style of comedy is not like lack of a better word, like insulting the audience. Sometimes there are aggressive clowns out there that are aggressive towards the audience, and they're hilarious because it fits on their body of this kind of everything's frustrating me that drives me to this crazy insanity. I can get to a frustrated insanity sort of point of view, but being angry and aggressive to the audience doesn't work for me. It's not organic. It doesn't smell right on my body. When
mm,
another clown, it may.
okay. Now, following on what you've said there, have you seen, and I've asked this to Jeff Raz as well, but I'm going to ask this to you as well. Have you seen the film Slumdog Millionaire?
Have not. Forgive me. Yeah.
But he was able to win Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in India through all his life experiences, and he was able to do that. So, from that film, I want to ask, who are the clowns that have influenced you the most and shaped your style as a clown and comedic
Yeah.
performer? And what have
Yeah.
you learned from each one? But also, how has your life experiences outside of clown shaped you as a performer?
Great questions. So, the people that have inspired me, whether they know it or not, the two, like when I was growing up, were for me the two, well, the two main ones is Steve Martin and Martin Short. Now, some people may not think they're clowns, but I think they're clowns to the 10th degree. They're very physical, they're very funny. Um, uh, they're complete morons. I really admired them while I was growing up. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, their physicality and storytelling were, I watched movies as a kid, and that's what really started my interest in comedy. As I got older and really started studying clowning, the two guys that are the two clowns that have really influenced me and my outlook is two American guys named Bill Irwin and David Shiner. Their partner work is it's the best ever. One is like fire, and the other is like fluid water, and they just super complement each other. Um, and they're physical and they're funny and they're great. Um, there's that. Those are the people that have influenced me. In terms of my life, um, growing up, something has changed in my older age. In my 20s, I wanted just to be the funniest person on stage and in front of the camera. I just wanted to be freaking funny, and I didn't care what kind of carnage came after. Now as I get older, like funny meter is a little different. Like I want to affect people on a different level, like an emotional level, where I find like a joke, when a joke is funny, you laugh. And if it's really funny, you like really laugh in the moment. But if it's not affecting you emotionally, you forget it the next day. You don't even know what the person did or said. But if it affects you emotionally, then they remember it forever. They're like, oh, I can't, you have to see this moment. You have to see this joke that this person did. So that's the kind of strange evolution that's happened in my work. Was that answering your question?
Yes, more or less.
Good.
Uh, I know that through Barnaby, your interview with Barnaby, you said that you occasionally produce shows at the Gotham Comedy Club. Do you mix a lot with stand-ups and clowns? And what do you make of like, have you noticed about differences in terms of how they prepare themselves before they go on? And what would you say the character of comedians are like compared to clowns?
Wow, so many similarities. Let's catch up your listeners to what the Barnaby thing was about Gotham. Is that I had a first starting out when I got out of clown college and off the road from Ringling Brothers Circus, started a comedy trio with my two buddies, Matt Morgan and Ambrose Martos. We went to clown college together, and there was some sort of simpatico that happened, complicite that happened, that it just worked. We liked being around each other. Our comedy worked. And Ambrose convinced, I don't know how, but convinced the manager one summer at this comedy club called Gotham Comedy Club in New York City that we were going to do a show. I can't remember if it was Friday night or Saturday night, but we were going to do a show once a week at this comedy club. And the only rule that we had for ourselves was we were not going to repeat any material that we did in the previous week, which meant it really made us hustle and work our butts off to write material, which also meant a lot of the material was horrible and gave us the opportunity to have a sandbox of testing material and finding out what works. And even to this day, we do some of that material that we did 20 something years ago at Gotham Comedy Club. And that's the only way that that we were able to do that and build that kind of repertoire, or start building that kind of repertoire. We can like I said before, the overlap of stand-up comedians and clowns are quite similar. I would say some of the major overlaps are we're just ourselves. I do believe that even if you're putting on a character, sometimes like Dame Edna, that's just one that comes to mind right now. But sometimes people play it, or Andy Kaufman, they come out and they're playing like a different sort of character, but deep down inside, they are playing a version of themselves. And I look at it like this, like if Jerry Seinfeld is telling a joke, you're like, oh, that's hilarious coming out of Jerry Seinfeld's voice, because that is him. He's being honest about what he's saying. However, if your uncle told the Jerry Seinfeld joke at Thanksgiving, you'd be like, oh, that was a funny joke, but it doesn't resonate like it's as funny as Jerry Seinfeld, because he's not Jerry Seinfeld. It's not him. It's got his voice on it. So a good clown and a good stand-up comic, your voice is yourself. So what I've found in my work is, because I am a short, neurotic clown who's shy around women from New York City, that's who my clown is. Just the knob is turned up to 12 or to 5 if I'm on TV, 12 if I'm in the circus. It's how hard, how loud you turn that knob off. You can look at someone like what's his name? Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp is a weird actor, but deep down inside, all those weird Jack Sparrows and all the other characters is Johnny Depp. Like, you can see him. He's there. And that's what makes him real and make you want to relate to him and empathize with him. And I believe that's true for comics and clowns.
And is that what separates the, sorry, this might be a bit controversial, but separates the great sort of comedians, clowns, and actors is their distinguishedness, uniqueness, and the way that, like Tom Hardy, for example, whenever he plays a character, it's brilliant. Like Bane, Alfie Solomons is an amazing character. If you got someone else to do that thing, it wouldn't work as well. And there's a mark of how good a performer is how, yeah, how distinctive they are, how they can't be like anyone else.
It's your personal truth. It's your personal truth. And that was what I've learned when you were talking about mentors, the shift of when I went from Ringling Brothers Circus, which was a circus that I wore a big wig and big shoes. This is many years ago, so the style has changed, of course. But it was an American circus where you played to sometimes 20,000 people in a giant arena, so you had to be big and loud and cartoon-like for them to even understand what you're doing. And when I got off that show, I started studying with this guy named David Shiner, who I mentioned before as one of the greats that has influenced my life. He was like, "What are you doing?" There's no truth in any of the gags and the bits and the movement that you're doing. You have to be yourself. You have to be you. And as soon as I started tapping into that, and it's an evolving discipline, because you change in your life, right? My 20-year-old Mark is not 40-something-year-old Mark. That's for sure. Different things are important to me. So if I'm playing my truth, that's for real, then that's when the laugh is coming. If I was playing 20-year-old Mark, you'd be like, what is going on over here? There's no truth involved with this, right? So your clown evolves, your comedy evolves, your character, back of a better word, evolves as you do. And if you don't grow, you die.
Yeah. It there's what you said there's very similar to a comedian I've had on the set on the podcast called Mr. C. And he's a black mainstream and urban, well, not urban, but black comedy circuit legend who's been going for ages. And he says to treat comedy like it's your lifelong partner, and that you've got to keep
Yeah,
things exciting. And if you don't grow, comedy either leaves you or you leave comedy.
that's right. Yeah, I believe that very much. Yep.
Is, does it happen in clownings as well, where you see people do the same routine for years and years to get paid, but you see them dead behind the eyes, and it has
Yeah,
a
yeah.
massive effect on how they perform?
You got it. You got it. There are some people out there that have been doing the same act, and I mean like to the T of how many steps they take from stage left to stage right. And it's fine, right? They're getting laughs, but they didn't get the same sort of gut laughs that they did when that was fresh to them and real to them. Part of the discipline of performing and performing live is trying to figure out um, how to make every performance seem like it's the first and only time you've ever done that, right? So if you have a career and you're on tour right now, I'm on tour with Circus. I'm gonna do hundreds of shows. I better figure out a way to make each one unique that it feels like I'm doing it for the first time ever. However, this show has been around for 18 years. The clown acts have evolved. They are not the same acts at all what they were 18 years ago. They had to evolve because you evolved, the clowns evolved, the time, what's happening around you in the world is evolving. And if you don't evolve with it, it will feel old and tired, no matter what you do, no matter how good you are in terms of making something feel real for the first time, for the 100th time you've done it, you know?
Ooh, this may lead into something that could be controversial. And there's a big divide in stand-up. I don't know what it's like in clowning, but they say that there's comedians on one side saying that cancel culture is ruining comedy. Then there's comedians on the other side that say you've got to adjust. And I'm thinking that from what you said there, and it's got me thinking that, yeah, it's not ideal that you can't do the things that you want to do before, but you want to make people laugh and you want to do well.
Yeah.
You accept it as it is.
So it's such a controversial subject to talk about. And I talk about this subject all the time, not all the time, often. And I don't think there's a right answer, obviously. There's one side of me, of course, that says, listen, funny is funny, plow through. I have a theory that if a joke doesn't offend at least one person, it's probably not funny. It's dangerous. Comedy is dangerous because you are talking about subjects that sometimes, you don't talk about at the dinner table,
Uh-huh.
But on the other side, I believe a performance is a conversation with the audience. So if you are having a conversation with the audience and you're offending the audience, that who wants to go to that party? You know what I mean? A performance should be like, hey, welcome to my party. Come on in. I want everybody to have a good time. I want everybody to talk, meet each other and laugh with each other, maybe dance with each other, leave and talk about what a great time they had the last night, the previous night. But if you're to come to my party and all I do is insult you, well, nobody wants to go to that party. So I believe that you have to be sensitive um, to what people are, what's happening in the real world. And I think one of the words that's important for the audience is this word consent. Um, so this is to use this as an example. Um, uh, there's a famous old clown bit that when you pull someone up on the audience, you at the very end you offer your cheek, like, go ahead and kiss me on the cheek, that was great. And then once they go ahead and kiss you on the cheek, you turn your head and they kiss you on the lips. Now that might have been cool. I don't even know if it was, but it was funny and everybody did it. I was subject to this, that I did it in one of my acts at one point, and it got laughs. It's fine. But that's not cool anymore, I don't think, personally, because that person didn't agree to kiss you on the lips. That's not cool, right? But there's also a very thin line that if you're going to go to, I'm trying to think of a comic that's universal. Um, um,
Seinfeld.
like it, like I said, you're gonna go. Nah, Seinfeld's not a good one. Seinfeld does believe that funny is funny, and people have to get over it. That I know. I've listened to him talk about that. But there are comics that like yell and scream and that are angry, right? And that's their bit, right? And you know that you're gonna go buy a ticket to go see that person. Now, or you're going to go see a person that use a lot of four-letter words, for example, right? Like there are comics that just curse their faces off. And you find cursing insulting. Well, guess what? Don't buy a ticket to go see that person. You are consenting to their style by going, hey, uh, um, I'm going to go buy a ticket to see this comic that uses a lot of four-letter words. But again, there's a very gray area that I feel like comics need to be careful, and I use comics in a broad tense where stand-up comics and clowns, that we have to be sensitive to the audience. We have to be sensitive to the conversation. And if you don't grow with that, I think you're going to miss the bus. I think, but I don't
Mm.
know. Again, like I said in the very beginning, every time I say something, the opposite is true. And I think this is a real tricky one because comedy can be uncomfortable, and that is the point of comedy. That if it was safe, it'd be boring. Who cares? So there has to be some level of danger involved with it without alienating your audience.
Mm. Yeah, it is what yeah. It effectively you got to find your own way. That's it. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
And
it.
you're not going to please everyone. If you try and people please everyone, then that's as a performer
Exactly.
or as an artist. I mean,
Exactly.
is that the same in clowning? You're always going to get bookers or showmen that are going to say no to you. It's the same in every art form. That
Oh yeah, man. Like absolutely. You're not gonna please everybody. And that's the beauty of comedy and art in general. One person's gonna look at one painting and go, that's a beautiful painting. I love that painting. Another person's gonna look at that painting and go, I don't get it. It's a bunch of colors just swirled around. Looks lazy to me. You know what I mean? There's lots of there's something for everybody, you know?
and speaking on that sort of side of things, in stand-up comedy, one thing that I really like about stand-ups is, as a whole, they from my experience of being a comedian myself and a clown, I find that stand-ups are a bit unfiltered, more so than your regular person. And even though they do have filters, but you have conversation and they'll say things that, as you say, aren't suitable for a dinner table more so than your average Joe. That's what one thing I found, and I feel that that's what makes comedians I find interesting because there's so many different walks of life, and as a whole, to an extent, some comedians get into comedy because we don't fit in. We stand out, we're the outsiders. There's something a bit different about us that makes us do comedy. That's one thing I find. They got IBS, even the ones that look fairly. They got IBS. They got ADHD, they got autism, they're a bit weird, they've been bullied. There's all sorts of things that makes you want to make a tit out of yourself on stage. Now, as a whole, what would you say is with comedy? There's a lot of great things about it, but there are some fishy things that go into it. Now, this may be a dodgy territory, but what would you say is a dodgy and fishy thing that happens in clown circles that needs to change?
Wow. Dodgy thing in clown circles that need to change. Oh boy. Gosh, for me, the one thing in the clown world that I wish would change, and I don't know if this is a dodgy thing, but just the culture of it is the inclusiveness of it. There are so many, and probably true about comics as well. There are so many white guys doing this thing.
Ah,
And I wish there were more women. I wish there was more people of color, more culture. Um, and there are people that are championing this, like in New York. I know a group called the Clown Gym that are trying to pull in uh, more and more different kind of cultures. And I think that's a problem. I think we need more. I think we need more inclusiveness. And I think it's just been the history of it, of where people have been able to, the people that have been able to afford studying and take the time to study and but and then get enough exposure, and then it's just a vicious cycle, right, where it just kind of fuels itself, where I feel like if we can break that a little bit and get people of more diversity into the art form, I think that would make the world comedy more fun, for sure.
brings it's a bit like going to a food market. I don't know, in a buffet. What makes a buffet so interesting is different kinds of food, and it's like going to New York. What's great about it is the food. I don't know what
Yeah,
in New York they put in the food, because I know that a lot of American restaurants are suddenly starting to come to the UK since UK left the EU with the health and safety laws. But I tell
yeah.
you what, the stuff in New York, the variety you got, your food tastes good. I don't care if it makes me shit myself to sleep, but your food is good. And you got a variety of different things. And that's what you're saying with clowning. You need different foods. Sometimes you want a Chinese, sometimes you want a Thai, sometimes you want Italian, sometimes you want chicken wings.
You got it. You got it. I strongly, yeah, we need it. That's what we need to change. That's what needs to change, you know? Yeah.
What's a bad combination? Like chicken wings and like, I don't know, and like fish and chips. That's not right, is it? You need.
For me, anything with cheese. I've got a dairy allergy, so
Okay.
anything with cheese, I'm like, God, yeah.
Don't be cheesy. No, I'm joking. That's a British joke. We do these puns. I don't know why we love them, but and everywhere else they're like, why do you have to do cheap puns, UK?
I'll tell you, for me, I have fantasies of, because the dairy allergy got. I don't know why we're talking about dairy allergy, but just for a little side note, as I got older, my dairy allergy got worse. So in my young days, I'd have, New York pizza. And let me tell you, that's the thing that I miss the most. So I have these fantasies of sitting on the toilet and eating like an entire pie of cheese New York pizza. Just let her rip.
Oh, so 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 is that your treat every year? Like, right, fuck it. If I shit myself to sleep, I'm getting a good artichoke pizza from New York.
I'm gonna tell you, man, like I just had my colonoscopy because you're in your 40s. That's what you do when you're in your 40s, you get a colonoscopy. And I was like, you have to drink this stuff that makes you go, so it cleans out your colonoscopy. I was like, wait a minute, I'll do you better. I'm not gonna drink that like crappy that goo, whatever that stuff that you make me drink. I'm just gonna have my pizza. And that's what's gonna get me through my colonoscopy. That's what's gonna clean me out. So that's what I did.
Oh, okay. Good. You're clean now.
Hey, what? Your listeners are so happy right now. There you go. We're picturing Mark shitting himself so he can get a colonoscopy. Good times.
I mean, most of my listeners are comedians. So I don't want to know what goes in every comedian's head or every clown's head. But I think if some of the stuff that goes on, I say in a podcast, they're the regular person. They're thinking, right, when is Marvin getting arrested?
Love it.
Do you get that? I mean, that's the same in clowns behind the stage. The stuff you guys say, I'm pretty sure you'll get arrested for that. In stand up, the stuff you're saying, car shares, fuck.
Oh man, I'm so glad that when I was in my 20s, there was no social media. So all the stupid shit that we tried and saying things backstage and there's no proof of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Nowadays, like you say something stupid just because you're backstage and oh, that was dumb. I regret saying that. But guess what? It's on video. It's gonna get posted. You're in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. You got like someone don't like you, but they're friendly. They trick you. The phone's recording. Hi, Marvin. We didn't used to be friends, but now we are. Could you repeat what you said about this here?
Life is over. Yeah.
Uh, That I think is a bit harsh. That goes on where people can. unless the intent, well, okay, this is going dodgy territory, but I think depending on the severity of what people do, I think sometimes with the cancel culture, I think people should be given a second chance. And in some days in comedy, you do get that. Like Louis C.K. has, even though he can't be mainstream, he's still got a second chance. But I'm saying in some instances, I've seen people completely get bullied. Where, I mean, there's a comedian that I know called Adam Riley. He's doing all right now, but the reason he survived is because he's not famous.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like yeah, with social media, we're all, angry drivers. You know what I mean? Where, you're just flipping people off while you're driving and you're never going to see that person because you're just driving away. So it's like there's no um recourse, And that's what I feel like all this social media has done is like everybody's got an opinion, and I do believe people change, people make mistakes. Um, and people, especially people in art, because we're pushing the boundaries. We're trying to figure out, how to do art. And art is messy. And if you don't learn from your mistakes, that's a problem. But if you learn from your mistakes and you change, which I believe people can, yeah, second chances, even sometimes third chances are okay because we're just figuring it out. We're figuring it out together.
And talking like mistakes and all these things that go on, what is the two questions on this? What of my dad says this, and there's a big quote that I've taken from my father. Father's advice, he says, don't look at painful experiences bad. If you, that's what he says. And I think as I'm starting to see that because I found that sometimes with me, the only thing that motivates me is fear of loss or something that's really painful is that to happen for me to be motivated to do something. Otherwise, I get that's what I found. And I found what have been instances where you've made a really stupid mistake that's been painful, that has taught you the most in life and as performing, and what have been instances that, yeah, what have been painful experiences, uncomfortable, scary experiences that you've witnessed that you can now laugh at now that have taught you a lot about performing and life?
Um, well, that's a interesting question. There was a so my whole theory about comedy was and the good thing about clowning is that you can a mistake on stage is a gift if you let it be a gift, right? If you wallow in the shit of it, then you're dead. Yeah, everybody's like, this is horrible. And I use this is a great example. I talked about the comedy trio happy hour that I worked with for many years, and we did a show called It Takes Three. And it was a show about the three of us. This was many years ago, but it was about the three of us that are traveling across the country to be the next boy band sensation. We're in a mime car and we're driving along, and in this mime car, we stop in the middle of the street, and then we realize, oh my gosh, we don't have a count of eight of choreography. There's a big hole in our choreography. We need to figure that out. And what we do is we go, oh, let's pick up this hitchhiker, which means we're picking someone up from the audience. And they teach us a count of eight, whatever that may be, and then we inject it into the ending of the show. By the end of the show, people have forgotten that we've done that, and then they remember, oh my goodness, they've got that count of eight from that person, and it's very satisfying. Well, my buddy Matt was the person who usually would go into the audience and pick someone, and he's typically very good at it. Until this one day, we were in a very established theater called Ars Nova in New York City. He picked someone up that was limping, and he was limping all the way up the stage, and he was limping in a big way. And I just thought to myself, "Oh man, this is going to go south. We're about to play and kind of tease this guy about his dancing, and he has a horrible limp." So when we got to the point, and the audience could feel that too, like there was this kind of tension in the air of what are these guys doing? This is not cool. And it got to the point, we're just kind of like trusting the moment. And it got to the point where, like, okay, sir, now show us your best count of eight. And what this guy did was he walked himself to the back of the stage and he leaned himself up to the wall of the stage and he pulled up his pant leg and unscrewed his fake leg, his prosthetic leg, and then jumped up and down on one leg and waving the prosthetic leg in the air. And so all we could do was stand there and watch him do that. And the audience went bananas because it was honor this guy, respect this kind of moment where this guy is now shining and living his big life. And you all know 2 minutes is a long time on stage, right? Like if you're doing something for 2 minutes, it better be good. Well, this guy did this for 2 minutes. I know this because we have it on video. He did it for 2 minutes, and the audience is shitting themselves with laughter and fun and joy. So there's an example of you have sometimes you gotta trust the shit moment, lean into it, and um embrace it, celebrate it. You know, if we went the opposite direction, like, oh man, we are so sorry, we're a horrible like there's that dip, right? Um, so that would be one of those lesson moments. And then I'll tell you one more. This guy David Shiner, who I would talk about before, he does an audience participation bit where he pulls people up from the audience. And I got to watch him do this act many times. It was called it was a show called Old Hats, and I was around that time, so I saw a lot of the shows. And he would point to someone in the audience and go, "Hey, you come up on stage." Well, this person, no, funny, similar kind of story, but this person stands up and takes a long time to get out of the aisle. And David's then on stage. He's kind of one of those kind of aggressive clowns, starts making fun of the person, like, "Come on, person, let's go. Would you move it along? People are waiting for you." And then the audience is like laughing with him, like, "Yeah, come on, dude. What's wrong with you? What's your problem?" And finally, this guy gets to the aisle, and then everybody realizes that he has a cast on his leg. So then David's like, "Ah, come, get back to your seat. This is horrible." And then that's when the audience turns on David because now David is kind of going at this guy who's got a cast on his leg. And that's when the David then starts going after the audience back at them. And so I kind of call it the comedy meter, where here David is. Sorry, viewers, you can't see this, but it's kind of picture like a speedometer where the needle on the speedometer starts to go up, where the audience turns on you, and you go after the audience. Now the needle's going up, and you're going at the audience. It's like, oh man, this is uncomfortable. Like the needle is going up. This is super uncomfortable until you can get past that, and then back to zero. The needle resets itself, and there's that tension that's released, and everybody thinks you're funny again. And I saw David afterwards, and I go, "David, I can't believe that happened." And he goes, "I know. Isn't it great?" So for him, this negative, scary thing turned into a positive thing because he leaned into it. Now, me as a clown, as I said before, if I went after the audience that same way, it wouldn't ring true. It wouldn't ring funny because that's not my warm sweater. But for David, that's his warm sweater, and he trusted it, and it worked. Now, does it
Ah,
work all the time? I don't know, but it sure worked that time.
it's it's a and yeah, you said that it's got to be tread the line a bit, otherwise it's boring and predictable. And you've got to be a roller coaster in a way.
Yep.
It's
Yep. We are. And okay, so this is something I wanted to point out too that you were talking about, where, there's something about all comics that are a bit broken, right? Like we've been bullied or lost or something in our life. And I would say that's everybody. Everybody has experiences in their lives that are not fun, that affect us as humans. The difference between comics and clowns and other people who don't do that is that we're willing to share that in front of a room full of people,
ah,
right? We're going, "Hey, look at this, all the horrible things that happen to me." you know, that's the difference between comics and regular people. Everybody goes through shit. Everybody has stuff that happens in their life that they'd rather not happen. That's life. But we are willing to share it with 1,000 people at a time, you know?
And in a way, does that make, this is a thing that I've done recently, and I followed. There's a comedian that I've interviewed a podcast called Gareth Berliner, and he
Yep.
said like he's got all sorts of, he's got Crohn's disease, he's got all the sorts of conditions, and he has to get a nutrition thing pipe to put to survive. And he said like during his 20s, before he did stand up, like he was friend zoned a lot. But he said when he started owning his weaknesses, like making fun of all his weaknesses on stage in his 30s and doing stand up, it completely changed him. He became more confident, he owned his weaknesses, and well, he started to get laid more.
Which is why we all get into this profession, men or women.
But
Yeah.
that's that's what you said there. That's probably the advantages we have as a performer. Well, not every performer decides to take those risks, but I've seen a lot. The comedians that I admire and are the ones that are willing to take that risk. Like I interviewed another clown on the podcast, Sue Morrison. She hated Joey Diaz, but Joey Diaz was the thing that I like about him is that he's willing to talk about what's fucked up about him and about fucked up about life, and he's unfiltered and be confident. Listen, I'm a fucked up motherfucker. This is about me, and I'm willing to have a joke about it. And then yeah, and I admire that because he's confident about it. He's not trying to be this or high or anything. This is me. This is what's happened to me. And then when I did something similar on stage, I'm not going to say what I joked about, and I'm going to do it throughout this year, start making jokes that I'm really insecure about. I saw on stage, no one really gave a shit anyway. What I
Yeah, yeah,
thought mattered so much, everyone else, when they saw me do it on stage, they're like, so,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and who knows why? You know what I mean? It could be the structure of the joke, could be the rhythm of the joke, it could be the subject matter. We never know totally, but I do know at least what kind of comedy I like is when it's truthful, when it feels real, and that goes back talking about the person that you were speaking of that's got this Crohn's disease and etc. That's the difference, like I was saying before, of I just want to be funny to I want to affect people,
ah,
right? He could tell really funny jokes, and that's not about Crohn's disease that people are going to laugh about. But as soon as it was something that was so truthful and it affected you on a different level, and that's why you remembered it. That's why you were like, oh, that person's a great comic.
hmm. And this is another thing that I've tried on as well. I play Zorro. I don't know if you think this is racist or not. Some people have said, but I play Zorro. You've seen the film, and I call myself Asian Zorro. I've found it easy to develop jokes for Zorro based on my life experiences, but obviously he's a different character to me. But it's been actually giving me a hump of material talk about my life experiences, but doing it from how he would see it rather than me and how he would react to it.
Yeah,
But it's still got the
yeah,
context of coming from my life. Whilst if I just try to write something out of nowhere, it wouldn't feel real. It would be out of nowhere. But if I do something
right,
that's from me, it's much
right.
easier to create something for him, even though he's a character
Because
that's
it
made up.
because it's truthful to you, it's funny. If it was like about appropriation, you're like, I think I'm gonna do the Zorro bit because I think it's funny. Like, yeah, that's when you're like on the excuse me, on the line of being inappropriate and appropriation and making fun of a different culture and etc. However, if Zorro is part of your history and part of your life and affected you in a certain way, that's your truth, man. Like people can't. I mean, there might be people that like I said, if you don't uh, insult at least one person, that will be offended. You know, probably not funny. So yeah, there'll probably be some person be like, "Dare you play Zorro?" But there's going to be a whole bunch of other people that also say, "Hey, that's his truth, man. Like that's what he grew up with. He wants to be Zorro. You can't blame him because he's not Spanish. Who cares? You know? Yeah.
Well, I'll say one thing. I'll say the joke that I do for him, and this is a joke that works for me as well when I perform. Where I say, "Let me say why I look like this." I say I'm half Irish and half Chinese, and I say it means I'm a hard-working alcoholic. And I say that joke as Zorro, and I do get a laugh when I perform it as me. But when I say it as him, like I say, "Let me explain why I look like this," and I say that I'm half Irish and then say I'm half Chinese, and then do the joke, it gets a much bigger laugh. And people have always said to me, it's like, you've not addressed why you look like that, and it's completely different. He's supposed to be a Mexican character, yet you're doing these jokes, and it's yeah, it just has a massive effect because it's completely stupid and doesn't make any sense.
Because you're an idiot. Because you're an idiot. Like if you're accepting that you're an idiot, then we can laugh at you. If you're doing it as as yourself and you're not quite an idiot, then we're like, wait a minute, this is you're not aware of it. Rather than, and that's why people like David who are these angry kind of characters, they're idiots. So you're able to laugh at them. And I'm going to say something, controversial, and the immediate is automatically true. Is that for me the very thin line between acting and clowning is how much fun you're having. So in other words, if you're an actor and you're acting angry, you're like, oh damn, that motherfucker's going to kill somebody. If you're a clown and you're clowning angry, you're having so much fun that you're angry. The audience is going, oh, man, this motherfucker's gonna kill somebody, right? Because of the level of fun you're having. If you're aware that you're an idiot that's so angry, then we can laugh with you.
And you're not taking yourself too seriously, yeah.
You got to be an idiot. Got to be an idiot.
But it's the bit that no one wants. Like no one wants to be the like when I'm at work or something, or other people. No one wants to be the that drops all the plates or falls over.
That's the difference between normal people and us. That
Yeah,
we're willing for you to be like we're all idiots, and we're taking one for the team. You can laugh at me. Go ahead, laugh at me. I'm an idiot. I don't care. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah, that's something and that's a maturity of a comic too, where it's like, it's not like, uh, um, uh, at me. I demand you to laugh at me. I'm pouring myself to you in the. It's like desperate, right? Rather than going, hey, here's my truth. Come check it out. Aren't I an idiot? Yes. Now I can laugh at you,
mm,
right? There's that very thin line of confidence when you get older and you start doing it more often,
yeah,
right? You become less desperate.
yes. And you become more you.
Voila.
Now, if there is, I think, yeah. I honestly, I think, yeah. I've asked, these are yeah. I think we've been through all the questions that I wanted to ask. I think the only thing I want to say now is, if there is advice that you're going to give to anyone that's a stand-up comic, uh, um, wanting to give clowning a go, what would you say to them? And yeah, what would you say to them? Because there are comedians that are interested in trying clowning, but there are stand-ups that also, from I've seen a lot of stand-ups, they have a funny perception of clowning. They believe that if it's not a joke or if it's not straight stand-up, they're like, it ain't comedy, bro. But what would you say to people that want to try clowning as a stand-up?
Well, before I answer it, why do you think they're like, that's not comedy, bro? Like, what's their position there? Why?
As I'm in those circles and I mix a lot of stand-ups, and I've also been to Goliath, I've been to like a Mater
Yeah,
Destro theatre school, I've seen both sides of the fence.
yeah,
So the reason is one of the things when they see a musical comic and you do the music, they can do like a fancy little song and they get applause, but comedians don't get that. And so they feel when they watch a clown or they watch comedians that aren't or people that are funny that aren't just doing straight jokes, that you need to use all of that to be funny and you can't be funny doing what they do. That's how they view it. And that's why they feel that they're better than other art forms. But
mm-hmm.
my viewpoint of it, I couldn't give a fuck what someone does. As long as you're
Yeah,
not harming anyone, as long as you're making
yeah.
people laugh, who gives a fuck?
You're right. I am on your camp for sure. Um, but if I was going to give advice to a comic and be like, why is clowning or studying clowning is important? first of all, it's about finding the right teacher. First of all, like, I feel like I kind of get this question because I have a martial art background, right? When I was a kid, and go, what's the best martial arts? What's gonna kick the other martial arts ass? And when the answer is well, they're all good. It's just about who, if you're gonna get a good teacher, and then if you get a good teacher, that one's gonna help you kick ass. That's it. So in a similar way with comedy and getting great teachers and mentors is that if you have a great teacher slash mentor, they will help you kick ass. As a performer, for me, I want to put as many tools in my toolbox as possible. So in other words, let's say I'm a stand-up comic. Now I'm not, and I totally admire stand-up comics. I think it's an art form that, I've tried a couple times in my life and realized that I'm mediocre at best at it. But let's say I am a comic and I want to be the best performer that I can, I'm going to study as many things as possible to put in my toolbox. I want to study some dance. I want to study some vocals, so voice lessons. I want to study music. As we all know, rhythm and timing, and you can get a laugh just by rhythm. It doesn't even matter what words you're saying, you know? And then the same toolbox, maybe I would throw in something like clowning. And one of the reasons why I'd say clowning is so important is, folks, people are not just listening to your words while you're on stage. They are also looking at your body. And you can tell a story just simply by the way you're standing. If you are unaware by the way that you're standing and what story that's saying, or just how you're crossing across the stage, if you're unaware, you're missing an opportunity for people to fall in love with you. I call clowning the first worst date ever. Because the second you walk on stage, I mean the second, you want the audience to fall in love with you and spend the rest of the night with you in the first second. And there's the opportunity of just simply walking onto the stage and getting to the microphone. And clowning will make you aware of your body and how you can communicate to the audience using your body. It's not just words. They're also looking at your body.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that definitely. It's it makes you more versatile, and I don't agree with anything you said there. So I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
I don't agree with anything I said either. Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything you said there.
This interview is over.
That was a clown moment there, I think.
You found it. You saw it.
No. For anyone that wants to find out about you, how do they get in contact? What is your letterbox so they can send letters or poo through your door? What is what is that? Your email? What? Yeah, just
my email. My address is my home number is you can find me on my website. It's just my name, markgindick.com. I've also got an Instagram and a Facebook. It's just my name, Mark Gindick. And I've got a YouTube channel called Comedy Bodega NYC, where during the pandemic, while we're all hiding in our houses, we decided to make a YouTube channel, and all these videos that are there are 2 minutes or less. So they're quick little snippets of stupid clowning / physical comedy things. So those are many ways to find me. Or you can find me on tour for the next year with Cirque du Soleil here right now in the States with a show called Kuza.
Okay. So you know where to find out about Mark. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I'll see you guys soon. Make sure you give this episode a 5-star review on Amazon or iTunes. Also, the next guest that I'm going to be talking to is Petra Massey from Spy Monkey. And the one after that is, I've got Dick Monday scheduled in. And I'm trying to do this, but I got a Bangladesh comic who's been on Comedy Central. So we got a lot of flavors of ice cream to try. And I'll see you guys soon.
Bye, everyone.